Okay, tuning in VE, take number, well, you don't really want to know. So this gentleman here, we'll go with that one. His tune is in alpha, and it doesn't really need to be. Uh, VE is a better idea for tuning. So I just said no to that because it can screw things up. Um, so what is VE? The key word is volume in volumetric efficiency. So it's air. It's how efficient the engine takes in air. And you have to realize there's three different, mostly three different effects on how much oxygen is getting into the chamber. So let's go back to target air fuel ratio here. What is target air fuel ratio? This is how many pounds of air he wants per pound of fuel. Simple. Okay, so how does it determine how much air is getting into the engine? Well, you can increase the amount of oxygen getting into the engine by either increasing the breathing efficiency of the engine, which is this. If you double this, here I'm going to hit Control A, right click, offset selected, asterisk 2. I just told the ECU we're now taking in twice as much air per revolution as we were before in volume. So that means twice the amount of oxygen, twice the weight, and well, of course an engine actually doesn't do this, but that's just an example. Another way we can increase the oxygen going into the engine is by increasing the pressure going up this way. You can add turbochargers and such. So those are two ways we can increase the breathing efficiency of an engine. I'm going to zero this out here. And so we have 0% on this volumetric efficiency table. Going to go here, open a second version. And this is going to be, no, we're gonna open the old one because we already switched it. So this is the old version. You can see the y-axis is TPS. On the other one, the y-axis is pressure map. So we know a few things. The gentleman says that this it's fairly well tuned, and we can kind of see that. So the problem is at 100% throttle, what pressure is there? So that's why it's better to build a map with build a fuel map with map because the pressure can change. If your pressure changes, so does your tune. We don't want that. So I'm going to hit Shift and End if I can find it. I'm going to select this whole row, right click, copy. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to paste it actually in a few spots. Actually, no, I'm not. I have to go over here. Oh boy. If we switch to quote unquote speed density. Okay. So I'm going to use these numbers. Now, a question a lot of people get is, okay, so this is converted to volumetric efficiency. We hit graph, hit conversion, and it looks totally stupid. The problem is actually scaling. Down here at the bottom, we're at zero pressure, right? We're at a pure vacuum, but we're telling the engine, we're telling the ECU, the engine's actually taking in air. But how can it? It's in a pure vacuum. So instead of changing the scaling, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you guys. This is a little flaw in the Holley. I'm going to make this 0. Okay, so now we have another problem. We had the line going this way at 0 RPM. How can we be taking in any air, any fuel, any air? It's just not going to happen. So we're going to 0 that out. Now we hit graph and conversion. And it still looks stupid, of course, because it's still dividing. So what I'm going to do is cheat a little bit. Select this. Well, that's embarrassing. So I'm going to ignore the scaling issue, hit graph, hit conversion, and now we have VE map. Still doesn't look the best, but we'll go with it. Probably if we go right around here and hit graph again, conversion. So it's starting to look like a normal, kind of a normal VE map. You have to realize it's based on TPS, so it's not the best scaling. So what I'm gonna do, oh yeah, it's way out. There's no way. What I'm gonna do is just take a few tidbits from this map. He says it is dyno tuned, so we know the top end is probably good. And what we're gonna do is take the very top row from about here. We're gonna steal this a little bit here, Control C. So at 3510, we're gonna go to the over to the other map. 3510 right here. We're gonna plop that in. Oops, dumbass. And we're just gonna get rid of this other stuff here. Delete. We're gonna delete this. Okay, so we're starting to get a little bit of a map going in here. You can see there's a sort of a shape in there. And here's the interesting thing about a VE map is you can actually tell where peak torque is. The highest number is where your highest cylinder pressure is at this pressure right here, at that intake pressure. So we can tell around 5,900 to 6,200 is where peak torque is. So this is a healthy engine. So we're going to go back to our old numbers. Volumetric efficiency. And no, these numbers are way out. Normally you'd go TPS in this area. So I'm just going to wing it. So he said it idled around 70, I believe it was around this area. I'm going to guess 45. Starting to get a map built in here. So I'm going to fix a little bit of the scaling issue here. Let's start at 540. And then there's no way he's making that much vacuum. We're just going to go like this. You know what? Let's just go right to the top. So we're starting to build a VE map a little bit. Okay, so around the idle area, 45% is, typical. It'll fix itself. So what that means is every stroke, the cylinder on every intake stroke is filling at 45% volume at this pressure right here. So we have volume, we have pressure. We actually need a third item in there to properly account for the amount of oxygen that the engine is taking in. It's influenced by volume, pressure, and temperature. So let's go over to fuel modifiers here, air temp enrichment, and we can see it's 100 across the board. This isn't very good because it does not account for the change in oxygen as the air temperature changes. So it's no different than, say, this just making it all one number. It doesn't make any sense. So let's add a little bit something in here. This is just typical values derived from ideal gas law. Actual will be a little bit different than that. So we're starting to get on our way here. So I can tell you from experience that tip in off idle, it'll go, kind of into this area, and you'll usually get a bit of a mound. The VE will increase quite a lot. So what I'm going to do is, let's just slap in 60 here, right? And let's actually make this go a little bit lower here. Yeah, right there. So I'm going to take this, right click, fill row values. We're starting to get a little bit of a graph going here. Look at that. Beautiful. Right? So how about the rest? Well, as you get further into vacuum, the engine efficiency usually drops. The reason for that is there's more pressure in the atmosphere than there is in the intake manifold. So how can the engine efficiently take in that air if there's more pressure working against it in the exhaust side, right? It just can't do it. There's a lot of pumping losses. So typically, as you come down in the vacuum, the VE is also going to drop. Now, I'm going to go over here. We're going to open up. There's a few custom cals you can look at. Yeah, I think this one. I'm not going to save changes. And let's take a look at the VE map. So you can see, now this area at the bottom here is probably not tuned. The engine will never get into that area anyways. So you can see this peak torque is a little around 5,500. He probably idles right in this area. And as it drops down, the VE drops down. Same with RPM. As you come down, it's going to drop down a bit. I believe there's another one that's good to look at. Where is it? Nope. Yeah, this one here. Let's have a look. You can always look at these ones. So same sort of thing. Probably idles in this area, maybe up in here. And peak torque is around here, quite high actually. And it drops down to here. You'll see if this person made a drag strip pass, they would go from idle, probably two-step up in here. Then the pass would be come up this way, back down for a few shifts. Then when they snap the throttle shut, it's going to come down like this and then return to idle. Something like that. So there's actually a lot of cells that are never used, and you can tell because these bottom 3 rows have never been touched by Learn. So you can tell there's, what happens, and we're starting to get that with this guy's tune here. So let's get to work. Let's quit being lazy here. What I'm actually just going to do is kind of copy the shape of one of these. I'm going to go here. And then put it here. And what I'm going to do is actually offset selected, multiply it by 0.3. So I really crank down the amount of air I think the engine is taking in. Then I'm just going to go like this. Like that. Oh, look at that, eh? That's probably actually too much. And then we're just going to fill column in here. So I just whipped up a map. Now it's probably a little bit rich. That's okay. He'll it'll it'll take out fuel for learn. Let's take a look what it looks like, just like that. And we can probably change it a bit. Maybe we should. Yeah, let's go. Something like this. Pull down those values a bit. And there's going to be a little bit of nastiness. Yeah, right in there. And right in here. Maybe hit the ever famous smooth button. Something like that. That's good enough. I'm happy with that. So let's have a look at the graph. Just make sure. It looks kind of nasty in there. Let's do this. Fill row values. Something like that. And then what we can do is just grab all this and just smooth it out. Yeah, it should be fine for that. So we have the idle area. He told me where it idles before. Actually, what we should do is check the target idle. Target idle speed. Oh, he's idling at 1,000. So where's that? 1080. Yeah, that should be all right. Yeah, that should be perfect. 1080. So there's just kind of a winged up base fuel map. Really what I did is I just used his numbers for wide open throttle. They're tuned on the dyno, so that should work. The other interesting thing about VE is you can actually, here, let me see if I can find, let's go with another custom one. This is really interesting. I like this. Let's go with this one. Okay. So like I said before, peak torque, when we're running the same amount of boost, is wherever it's highest. So peak torque is here at atmosphere. And then in boost, it actually shifts up a little bit. But here's the interesting thing. As we're getting into boost, you notice the numbers are getting lower. Well, how does that make sense? We're actually getting less volumetric efficiency. So the volume of air entering the cylinders per stroke is decreasing, but the pressure is increasing more. We're having a loss of oxygen as in terms of volume, strictly in terms of volume, we're not a lack of oxygen. We're losing air in terms of volume, but we're more than making it up with pressure. So the overall amount of oxygen going into the cylinders is increasing. That's why we turn up the boost. We're actually dropping the VE as we do that usually because of the turbine back pressure, etc. But it's really interesting. So if you think about that, okay, so what does the y-axis? So I talked about the peak torque on the x-axis, but which by the way, you should pull a little bit of timing there at peak. But on the y-axis, the interesting thing is if the volume is higher here and it's going lower, that means right here at 108 along this line, along the boost, that's where the port speed is the highest. And you can even calculate port speed if you have port cross-section area. You can do a little bit of math and calculate it. So that's pretty neat. Let's go back to this guy's tune here. I'm pretty confident this will work out fairly decent for him. Yeah, I think so. Just gonna do another thing for him. Take this. Oh, he's gonna need a lot more. Triple this probably. Bet you anything. Yeah. Oh, geez. Okay. Well, we'll just leave that at there. Actually, that's the wrong one, isn't it? No, that's the right one. I just didn't name it right. So save this. VE conversion. And he should be good to go. All right, if you guys got any questions, feel free to ask. I do feel that VE is superior to pounds per hour. It tells you more information. You look at the graph. Okay, so what does this tell you? You know, this doesn't tell you anything, pounds per hour. You look at this, there could be spots where it's not tuned very well, but you can't see it. Not only that, it's influenced by the target air fuel ratio table. Whereas, since VE is volume of air, it's not influenced by the target air fuel ratio. You can tell if perhaps you need a larger cam or maybe it's too big. You can see, you can build a tune. You can literally take a VE map from one engine, put it into another engine, and it should almost run as long as they're somewhat similar. You can't always do that with pounds per hour if it's a different displacement. So you can see as the boost goes up, the volumetric efficiency drops, but that's okay because you're getting way more oxygen as you crank up the boost. Pretty cool.